Once you know what a UVP is, the next step is to start creating your own. So, in this section, we'll be drafting and crafting your own unique value proposition to really kind of land at something that works for you. There are some worksheets you are welcome to use to kind of work through each part of the UVP. You can also just use blank sheets of paper if that feels more comfortable. And it's probably helpful to have something to write with if that's the style of work you do. And having a thesaurus or some strong Google skills can definitely help, especially when we're thinking about those different action verbs. And we'll also be inviting you to share your UVP. So if you have someone, a trusted friend or peer or mentor who can give you some feedback, that can be really helpful as well. With a UVP, we always want to start with the subject of the UVP. So who is doing the action? Often these are I statements or I sentences. If you work collaboratively, you might choose to use we instead, but starting with I or we is usually how the UVP is drafted. Having said that, some folks find it easier or more sort of accurate to talk about their creative practice or their business in the third person. So if you want to have the business name of your practice as the subject for your sentence or your UVP, that is perfectly fine. Or if you want to think about your UVP a little bit more narrowly, you can think about naming a particular project or performance or body of work and crafting a UVP for that thing you are working on. My preference is to craft one that's a little bit broader using an I statement or the name of your business as the subject, but sometimes it makes more sense to craft a more narrow project-driven UVP, and that's okay too. So take a moment and capture the subject of your UVP on the worksheet. Once you've captured the subject, step two is to brainstorm some of those impactful verbs to capture the action. This is the what are you doing at the core, right? What is the core thing you do that has impact? And of course, we're thinking about action verbs or impactful verbs here as part of this. My challenge to you would be to come up with at least 25 different words. And I would encourage you to go much deeper than the first words you might think of, like make or create. We really want to go deeper to identify words that capture the impact or the value of what you do. There are plenty of examples here on the slide, and you also might find yourself needing to go deeper using some extra tools as well, because sometimes it can be really hard to think of verbs, especially more interesting ones. So here's where a thesaurus can come in really handy. Merriam-Webster has a fantastic one online. So you can just drop in a word like make or create, and then follow the rabbit hole of different words that are suggested. And anytime something feels interesting or resonates, go ahead and add it to your list. Similarly, if you're comfortable using large language models or a tool like ChatGPT, you can invite ChatGPT to give you a list of, say, 50 impactful words describing the work you do as an artist, and then you can narrow the list from that. And similarly, if there is a word that really resonates with you from the list, you can ask ChatGPT or any of the tools to expand further on other synonyms for that particular word. So feel free to use your own brain following your train of thoughts, or if you're getting stuck, there are some really helpful and useful tools as well you can lean into. Once you've got your list of 25 or more words, it's really helpful to identify maybe the 3 or 4 that are really resonating with you. So circle them, highlight them, indicate them kind of in some sort of way. Don't get rid of any of the other words. You might find a different word will land better with kind of the third part of your UVP. But if you have 3 or 4 words that are really jumping out as impactful to you, you want to make sure you're starting with those. It's possible those are the very first words you thought of. That happens a lot. It's also possible that you needed to go a little bit further in the process to come up with a word that really felt like it made sense for you. So figure out whatever works for you, find those couple of words, and then we'll use them as we come into this next section. The third part is to add the object to your UVP or the something interesting to the sentence. So again, we start with the subject, then the word, the verb, and then we add the something interesting. So maybe you say, I cultivate young creative minds as they explore their own identities through art or something like that. That's a phrase that describes those you serve, right? It's more of like a who phrase, right? Or maybe you say, I illuminate the ancient art of printmaking through modern techniques or something like that. There, you're kind of describing your how, and you're maybe alluding to your what as well as part of that phrase, which is perfectly fine. It's also possible that you want to lean into a why. So maybe you say, I realize the importance of artistic education to every human that exists in the world, or something like that, right? So, as you're thinking about what you want to emphasize about your work, and as you're building off of those verbs that really resonated, try to think about phrases that might answer the who question, or the how question, or the why question, or the what question. And as it evolves, you might find yourself particularly drawn to or particularly wanting to emphasize one or two of those things. And then they'll sort of come together into a phrase that builds off of that impactful action word based on the subject of your sentence. It is also possible, by the way, that you will go through this and there will be a phrase that just resonates with you and it doesn't really fit into another category for this object or the something interesting of your UVP. That is perfectly fine. Your UVP can be written in any way you want. So if there's something else you're drawn to emphasizing, emphasize that and then build the rest of the phrase around that, which is perfectly fine to do. As you have built these three pieces, the subject, the impactful action verb, and then also the object or the something interesting of your phrase, the next step is to kind of write it out. And you might write out several versions of this, but write it all out and then go into kind of tightening and editing mode so that you can kind of narrow what it is that you want to say and maybe borrow phrases from a couple of different versions so that you land on something that starts to feel really authentic and really like it's capturing the value of what you do in a way that you would be proud to share. And if you're getting stuck and it's not really flowing, you can always try to flip the order of the phrases. So maybe instead of starting with the subject and the verb, maybe you flip the order around and you say something like, by reintroducing ancient printing techniques to a new audience, I challenge the way individuals see everyday materials or something like that, right? Flipping the order can sometimes be an impactful way to spice this up a little bit. It is also possible you will find yourself getting stuck and feeling like it's really not coming together. And that's okay. We have a bunch of different examples in the next section that could be helpful to review just to kind of see how other people landed on things they wanted to emphasize and landed on different words that really spoke to them. Because sometimes seeing what others have done can really jumpstart your creativity.